Hey, what's up? It's Anthony and Marlie Love. Welcome to another episode of Traveling While Black.
Yes, we are in Bellingham, Washington, and we're excited for you all to check out the city with us. Come along.
Hey, what's up? I'm Anthony.
And I'm Marlie.
Welcome to Traveling While Black. Back in August of 2020, we took our first trip to Bellingham, Washington. I surprised Ant for his birthday with a trip to the Puget Sound coastal city located less than 100 miles north of Seattle and only 18 miles south of the U.S.-Canadian border.
And we had a blast. But see, the thing is, our show at the time of our visit was still pretty new. And of course, it has changed quite a bit, like our new rating scale. But during that same time, Bellingham has also changed.
Bellingham, being known for its beautiful scenery and great access to the outdoors, made summertime seem like the perfect time to go back to re-experience the city. This time to dive deeper into the area and really understand how things are.
One other huge difference for our trip this time is that we aren't in a pandemic. So that means we can actually get out and really experience what there is to do for fun within the city. And of course, in experiencing that fun, how comfortable do we feel as Black visitors?
Yes, we were excited to be coming back to Bellingham for another visit. When we reviewed our last trip, we gave it some rave reviews, but we realized that we missed a lot of important details that we will be sure to touch on this episode.
And as usual, a lot of the important detail begins with the city's history. And on this visit, we were able to get really hip to that local history by meeting up with a local expert.
So my name's Josh Soretti. I'm an associate professor of history and women, gender, and sexuality studies at Western Washington University.
Yes, this time was going to be different in Bellingham. Along with us being more seasoned Washingtonians, we will experience the local community and dive deeper into the history of the city.
Before it was the county seat of Whatcom County, Bellingham was home to the Salish peoples. For centuries, they called this area home until the arrival of Europeans.
In 1792, George Vancouver named the area Bellingham Bay, the namesake to the present-day city. But getting to that more present-day name was a little more complicated.
Bellingham is made up of the village of Whatcom, the village of Seahome, and we're standing right on kind of the old Whatcom-Seahome line right now, was the creek right over there. Further down the bay, there was a village called Bellingham and then a village called Fairhaven. Bellingham and Fairhaven merged to form Fairhaven in 1890. Seahome and Whatcom merged to form New Whatcom in 1890.
Yes, the respective villages teaming up with one another to create two new cities was seemingly easy. But that wasn't to be the case when the two newer cities decided to join to create the present-day city.
And then the two new cities kind of had a competition. In 1904, when they merged, Whatcom didn't want to become Fairhaven, and Fairhaven didn't want to become Whatcom.
Yes, the stubborn residents of the two remaining cities were able to somehow come to an agreement.
They settled on the name that George Vancouver had given the bay back in the 1790s, which was Bellingham.
Yes, they voted. At least the naming of the city was a lot more democratic than the naming of the bay.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Whitby.
But sir, he already has an island.
That's right. Okay, Bellingham, I suppose you earned the honor. I declare this area Bellingham Bay.
Or maybe it didn't exactly go like that.
As rough as it was, the deciding on a name is not the only controversy associated with the city of Bellingham. Like all cities, Bellingham only came into existence because of the economies created by industry. And as we all know, along with that usually comes the ugliness of hate and exclusion.
A lot of people came from all over the world to Bellingham. There were Filipinos who came to work in the canneries. Indigenous people came to take a lot of different jobs down here. But there were also these kind of waves of exclusion, especially when there are economic downturns. In 1885, the Chinese community, a lot of Chinese brick masons had worked in Fairhaven and built those buildings in Fairhaven. And then they were kicked out in 1885. In September 1907, the Asiatic Exclusion League, this racist anti-immigrant group, came and had a rally here, and they provoked this riot, an anti-Punjabi riot. So a few hundred South Asian men worked down on the waterfront, They were driven out of their homes, they were driven out of town. And again, we could see that there was this connection between economic downturns and driving people of color out. And what that meant over time was that Bellingham was a lot more diverse in 1904 when it was founded than 50 years later when it was almost 99% white.
Yes, that's part of Bellingham's history we definitely missed last time. But today, Bellingham looks like a far cry from those days of violence and exclusion, at least on the surface.
That's why on this trip, we were really interested to see how that history is reconciled within the city today. And of course, how would our overall experience be visiting as Black travelers? Drive grade. The drive to get to Bellingham from Seattle is a little over an hour and a half, but with traffic, it will be closer to 2 hours.
But it is just a straight drive north on Interstate 5. And here's how that drive went for us against our drive scale, starting with the views.
Bellingham offers some really beautiful scenery, and that's why on the drive, the awesome views don't really start until you're closer to the destination.
Yeah, the views aren't bad, but now that we've seen enough of the views Washington State can offer, we're only giving 1 point for views this time.
The drive gets all of the points for roadside amenities and route difficulty. See, being that there are abundance of great options to stop along the way, from gas to food, and in regard to route difficulty, like Mars mentioned before, it's just a straight shot of I-5.
As for roadside attractions, well, there aren't really any landmarks or tourist attractions along the way, but we will give 1 point because, hey, there are casinos.
Finally, for parking, we are going to take a point. Why? Because almost all of it was paid for parking. Luckily, thanks to the central location of our accommodations, we didn't have anything to worry about in regards to parking most of the time.
After tallying up this drive from Seattle to Bellingham against our rating scale, we come to a 7 out of 10 for drive grade. Level of fun. Even though for this trip to Bellingham, we were ready to have a totally different experience, we still chose to stay at the same place as last time, Hotel Leo.
Excuse us while we plug the digs that saved us from paying for parking all over the city. Ha! Continuing with the historic theme of this visit to Bellingham, Hotel Leo is located within the original building that was the Leopold Hotel, and the hotel still contains that same character that was within the original hotel.
The new hotel still offers great amenities that made it the center of Bellingham's social life throughout the original Leopold Hotel's run. And not only a great bar and dining options, but also a fitness room, a library with a pool table, and even a theater.
The theater is in honor of Clark Gable, who actually stayed at the hotel during the 1930s filming of Call of the Wild. But what I love most about our stay was, obviously, the provided parking.
What I love most was the spacious room we got to stay in that came along with the amazing views. After getting settled into our room, we were ready to hit the city to see what fun there was to be had in Bellingham.
Being that the city is known for its access to the outdoors, one of the activities within the city, once again, included a hike. This time, we took a lighter stroll on the South Bay Trail through Boulevard Park.
Our hike, or better yet our stroll, was perfect for experiencing the Bellingham nature this time around. Our other experiences were more involved within the city. Because of this, we got a good perspective of the city against our rating scale.
So, how did Bellingham do? In regard to quality of activities, Bellingham offers a lot. Along with its abundance of nature and outdoor options, there are also a bunch of ways to experience the local history. Even at the Hotel Leo, you can sign up for a pretty dope looking historic tour of the property.
While it has a laid back and slower vibe, being that it is a college town, there are a lot of bars and tap rooms. This is why we're giving all points for the quality of activities. Given the amount of activities, there's no surprise there's something for families, college students, and even retirees. So we'll give 2 points for demographic applicability.
But the city takes a hit on affordability. See, according to the numbers, Bellingham is cheaper than Seattle, but it is 5% higher than the state average. But it gets worse. Based on a report, Bellingham has the 31st worst housing affordability score in the whole country, giving it the least affordable housing in Washington. So, 0 points in regards to affordability.
And quality of restaurants, we were taking a point because we struggled to find another great option outside of the one amazing one we had at Brandywine Kitchen, a local restaurant that provides fresh, locally sourced, and gluten-free options. And on top of it all, it's Black owned. If you go to Bellingham, we definitely recommend a meal at Brandywine Kitchen.
Bellingham does bounce back in a major way in regards to special events. Bellingham seems to always be having something going on. On our visit, we were lucky to experience one of those events in person, Bellingham Downtown Sounds.
Taking place every Wednesday between now and August 7th, Bellingham Downtown Sounds is a free concert that includes food trucks, face painting, and more. The more included wine, beer, and cider. All of this was enough for us to give Bellingham both points for special events.
So as we hung out at the Downtown Sounds event, we vibed on the music, sipped on our adult beverages, and counted up the points for our time in Bellingham. Once again, we can say that we really enjoyed our time within the northern coastal city, and our score definitely reflected as much, as we give a 7 out of 10 for level of fun. Comfortability for Black people. Our last time in Bellingham, the city scored a perfect 5 out of 5 for comfortability for Black people score. This time, not only were things more open than last time, so we got to interact more with the locals, but also we had a new scale for rating and breaking down our comfort level.
So how did Bellingham do? Amount of Black people seen, we were giving 2 points because we actually saw a lot of other Black people on this visit, and most were locals. But where we aren't giving any points is for Black population numbers, because that is only 1%.
But when it comes to prevalence of Black history, Bellingham looks like it drops the ball. But thanks to our visit with Professor Soretti, we got to visit some Black historic sites within the city.
Bellingham was a really diverse community at the start of the 20th century. There was an African Cavalry Baptist church, Black-owned restaurants, Black barbers. The building that we're standing in front of right now is called the Oakland Block, and it was built in the 1890s, just at the beginning of the urban industrial era. This building has had a restaurant on the first floor for most of its existence. The restaurant back in the early 20th century was run by one of the first African-American families to live here in what was then New Whatcom, and eventually became the city of Bellingham in 1904. From about 1903 until 1910, the Oldwin family ran the mobile restaurant out of here. Mildred and William Oldwin ran the restaurant and employed a number of other people of color who moved through the town over those years. One of their employees, by the last name of Fort, ended up marrying their daughter, and their kid, Sylvia Fort, became a really famous dancer down in Seattle. Some people say that the Space Needle is based off of her dancing. At this spot here, which is just a vacant lot right now, in the 1930s on D Street was Winnie Adams' house. Winnie Adams was the only Black landlady in all of Bellingham, and she ran the only house where a Black person could find a place to stay the night in the 1930s. There were a lot of Black men who worked on the railroad, and if they got stuck in town for the night, none of the other rooming houses, of which there were many, would allow them to stay there. They had to stay at Winnie Adams. But it also meant that her house became the kind of hub of Bellingham's Black community in the 1930s.
Yeah, the city could definitely do more to bring attention to some of that Black history, but again, thanks to the good professor's lesson, we'll give at least 1 point in this regard.
The city far from drops the ball in terms of artifacts of inclusion. All over the city you see proudly displayed Black Lives Matter signs and pride flags. They even erected a monument to acknowledge the 3 tragic events against its Asian populations. So we can give 2 points here.
Finally, in regards to our personal feelings during our visit, we can give 2 points because we can say that we really felt comfortable pretty much everywhere we went, walking into establishments and especially conversing with the local Black residents.
And talking with those Black residents, we also got to get their input on the Black experience living within Bellingham. Based on that and our personal experience, we think our score accurately reflects. We give Bellingham a 7 out of 10 for comfortability for Black people. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and follow us on all of our social media platforms to see our previous adventures.
Until next time, beautiful people, stay up, stay true, and do you.